What's up guys, welcome back to Combat Arms channel. So in today's reaction video, we're actually going to be reacting to the Israeli counter-terror unit. These go by a few different names, like Yamam and whatnot. But I have a little bit of history with the counter-terror unit. I actually trained with them over at their schoolhouse in Israel.
And contact! Come on. Yes, good job. The automatic is just
I think it's called the Lotar school, if I remember it correctly. But these guys are pretty squared away. I don't think they're actually like a part of the Israeli Defense Forces. However, they do work with them from time to time. They're kind of like their elite police unit, but they're also like more of a special forces police unit. So yeah, they're pretty squared away, I'm not gonna lie. So we're gonna check out a couple videos. Mainly the first one's sort of like an overview of them, and then another video sort of going over some of their, just looking at some of their tactics. So it should be pretty cool. But yeah, a little bit of background for myself. I spent 5 years in the Marine Corps. I was infantry as well as CQB operator, and then I switched over to the Army infantry. And then in the Army, I was doing reconnaissance and just normal infantry stuff. So I've kind of been around a lot of different infantry units, but yeah, I've worked with a bunch of different militaries. And aside from the Royal Marines, I think the Israeli Defense Forces and Israel in general have a lot of squared away units. But yeah, I did train with them at their Lotar school in Israel, and so we sort of went through some of their shooting drills. We did some room clearing with them, and I worked with some of their rappel dudes, which I think they call them like their monkeys, and those guys are awesome. Honestly, everyone I've met in the IDF or like the counter-terror unit are like solid dudes, solid guys and females. But yeah, we worked with them quite a bit, and yeah, they know what they're doing. They know how to shoot. Their tactics are pretty squared away, and I mean, they're very well disciplined as per their selection process. So we're gonna check out this video, and it should be interesting. So let's get into it.
This is a rare look at the Israeli Police Force's Special Anti-Terror Unit, known in Hebrew as the Yamam. Members of this crack unit say they joined to give back to society, to contribute, to sacrifice. The last thing they're looking for is headlines or glory. They say they simply want Israelis.
So I'll stop it right there. So I'll just say off the bat, from what I know with the IDF and Israel in general, Israel's a pretty young country. They got their independence in 1948, but a lot of what their military is based upon, and a lot of their units, is based upon like actual historic events and tragedies that have happened in Israel's history. So they're really good about learning from past mistakes, or just past gaps in what they needed, and definitely forming their military and their police force around it. So you can see they're very passionate about all of that, and just in general the security of their country.
To be able to live a normal life in safety and security. The unit is, of course, top secret. It's considered one of the top 5 anti-terror squads in the entire world. Its specialty? Freeing hostages. If it seems to many Israelis that there has been a lull in terror attacks over the past year, it is in part because of the Yamam. They've carried out 108 joint.
Yeah, so specifically with the Yamam, or the counter-terror unit, from what I remember talking to some of the dudes, there was an incident, I can't remember, I think it was in the 80s, where there was some hostages that ended up getting killed just because the response from the normal conventional forces wasn't up to par with what they needed at the time. So unfortunately, they're sort of learning lessons through bloodshed, but it's definitely effective. So they're definitely doing things right.
Missions with the Shabak General Security Services, which thwarted countless terror attacks. These unit members say few of the missions become public. The average age of these special ops fighters is over 30. This officer has served over 21 years in the unit. He's 42, and he's a sniper. 12 bullets, 12 bullseyes, 7 seconds. Officers in the unit live by their beepers.
So yeah, you can see they definitely train with their marksmanship. We went through a lot of drills with them. They're really good about like reactionary shooting, and you know, if a target presents himself, they react really quickly and engage a target. So that's definitely how they train. They're very aggressive. Even with their close quarters combat or hand-to-hand combat, they do like Krav Maga and everything. So they're definitely some violent people, but this video might be a little bit older. I think some of the people that we trained with were in like their mid-20s, but they definitely do get people who are mature and experienced for this unit, and it definitely goes a long way because they're professional and they definitely take everything seriously, which, I mean, it's a very serious job, especially considering the position that Israel's put in, even like geographically the position they're put in. So they need a lot of solid units and a lot of solid people to fill those units.
They can be summoned at a moment's notice. They live in constant danger. Out of every 1,500 applicants to the unit, less than 1%, 12 to 15 individuals, manage to pass the selection process and training. Afterwards, they go through 8 months of specialty training, and only then are they considered warriors.
That's wild. But I saw some of the people rappelling. I think that might have been some of those the monkeys that I was referring to, which is kind of like, it's really cool with how they do it with the rappelling, because I mean, being in the Marines, I went to a course for rappelling, but you're doing it from a helicopter and you're doing it with like a harness and you're roping into the harness, and it's not very fast. So rappelling in that sense is kind of outdated, but with the instruments that they were using, kind of like a little clamp that they would use to hold pressure while they're rappelling with their pistols. I mean, it's pretty cool. Their military is getting definitely more modernized, and they definitely don't have any things in their military that are kind of just like filler, so to speak. Everything has a very specific purpose, even their equipment, and they're very well trained on it. But I mean, you can see they have a very grueling selection process, and it definitely shows. And then the training being 8 months long, I mean, it's pretty crazy. And even after that, you know, they have specialty people like snipers. They have certain individuals that clear out buses, which we're going to check out in the video after this. And then, you know, their monkeys and whatnot. So they have a lot of specialized people within the unit. So even going through the pipeline, it being 8 months, is pretty insane. But it definitely shows, not gonna lie. Like, every time we trained with them, they had a lot of good information. I was in the Marines I was in the Marines 4 years when we actually trained with them, and they were still giving me a lot of good information that I had never heard. So, and then a lot of their actual like experience and their training and everything that they learn comes from experience, because they learn something and then they immediately go and try it out, because, you know, they have the West Bank and, you know, Gaza Strip, which kind of like their hot areas, mainly the Gaza Strip, you know, fighting Palestinians and whatnot. But they take something, they see if it works in like real world combat, and if it doesn't, then they change it up. So they're very adaptive and they're very modern. So where, you know, they're all about changing it up, actually seeing if it's effective. So you can't really argue with how they do that. So in this clip, we're going to take a look at some of the tactics that the counter-terror unit uses, particularly with like hostage situations. This particular event, which is like a bus hostage situation, is based off of something that happened, I think it was in 83 or 88. But there was hostages taken in a bus by, I think, some Egyptian terrorists, and they were trying to drive to the Egyptian border. The bus ended up getting immobilized, and from there, I think it was the Special Forces unit ended up reacting, because the counter-terror unit wasn't really what it was right now. So the Special Forces was reacting. It wasn't really. It was very effective. However, one of the hostages ended up getting killed, and then I think 7 or 8 ended up getting injured. So these particular tactics are based off of that specific event. So they're taking those, you know, those lessons learned, and they're adapting this particular subsection of this counter-terror unit off of that. So you can see they're going to be very quick, very violent, and everything they do is for a purpose. So we'll check it out. So right off the bat, you can see they're initiating with their snipers. Their snipers they're very serious. They're really good shots. They train really hard. So it's cool to see that they're implementing their snipers with other units. So with their snipers and implementing it like this, it's nothing new. A lot of units end up doing this. When I was in the recapture tactics team, we would use our designated marksman to initiate an assault like that, because a lot of times there's like security on the outside, or one of the snipers can get like a shot on someone. So it's better to initiate with that shot, actually sending them like a message like, hey, we see you, we can actually affect you, and it creates like a shock and awe. So you can see right off the bat they're kind of shaking in their I can't get over how cool their gear looks. They have some solid gear, which is understandable that they would fund that unit, specifically. You can see that Israel in general is very serious about their defense, with the Israeli Defense Forces and these specific police units actually, taking these historic events and lessons learned and training off of that and actually seeing if that works. It's very smart, because then they know there's no gaps that people can take advantage of a second time. But you can see they're very quick, they're very violent. What I've noticed with the IDF and the counter-terror unit is they definitely don't try and waste they don't waste time. They don't try and put people in harm's way if they don't need to. They're very efficient and they're very precise in what they do. So very, very targeted strikes, and it all runs very smoothly from what I've seen. They're also, with their defense, they also have to consider their people. So, Israel has the Iron Dome to protect their people against, rocket strikes. But having these specific units allows them to make sure that they can react efficiently to any other attack. So they're very serious in protecting their people. They're very serious in protecting their country. With the position they're put in, again, like, they need to be very serious about their defense. And it shows in the 6-Day War. If you haven't heard anything about that, they're basically going against multiple countries, and they took down multiple countries at once in 6 days. All these countries trying to attack Israel, and they were able to defend themselves because they're very serious about their defense. They're very serious about what they are and what they stand for. So, it definitely shows. I gotta say. It's always impressive working with the IDF, and it was especially fun working with their counter-terror unit because they're very serious. They're definitely just some no-nonsense kind of guys. But it's always cool seeing some of their training. I haven't been able to find anything as far as their selection, like any in-depth videos or anything like that. But it's definitely cool to see what kind of tactics they use, what kind of training they do, and just like the general history and background of what they are. And again, second to like the Royal Marines, they're very serious. They're very professional. They're the second best military that I've worked with that I can remember. They're very serious about their fitness. They're very serious about their shooting. They don't focus too much on just being huge bulky dudes like you'll see in like the Marines, but they're definitely really focused on like cardio and like functional fitness. So they take their job pretty serious in that regard. But aside from that, their training is spot on. They learn from historical events. So they definitely don't waste any time in identifying where they need to, put more assets and more attention to make sure that their defense is stronger and their country's, safer for the people. But yeah, that's about it for this video. If y'all can find any other cool videos about the IDF in general, or, their counter-terror units or their special forces, let me know, because it's always cool to see what kind of training they do. And it's also cool to see, what kind of gear they're rocking, because they got Uzi Pros and Glocks and Tours. So very cool aesthetic, and very cool people in general. But That's it for this video. Again, if you have anything in general to recommend, by all means, I'm open for suggestions. So I'll see y'all later.